guess, Darryl, in the final moments of the game, your team trailing by a goal, what goes into the decision to put certain players on the ice versus others? Is that game?
It depends if it's on the fly or face-off.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you, for example, you're probably thinking about last night. Yeah. We got killed on face-offs. So basically, we had Lindy and Bax both out there, so you got a righty-lefty, right? So that does affect. A lot of times you're going 5-1, like 5 forwards, one D, or 4 and 2, depending on how much time there is, and 2 righties on the bat, whatever. There's a lot of different. It's not a set. And then when they do the timeout, it's just reinforcing. Usually, you have depending on time, you have 2 or 3 set plays that you just want to reinforce. So it's not really anything new, but but the personnel can change.
So for Jonathan, who's a distributor, in that situation, you didn't see a fit for him, like the last minute of yesterday's game?
For who?
Huberdeau.
Yeah, I think it would have. If it would have been better on faceoffs than one of Lindy or probably Bax. Jonathan would have been for Bax because that's a lefty, right? But we needed the faceoff, and Bax was going to take it.
What have you got from Nick Ritchie since he's gotten here?
You know what? I think the mindset at the start was to I think we let him watch. I think it was 1 or 2, and then try and see if we could find a spot for him in there somewhere.
What have you liked from?
Yeah, I think when he's got his feet moving and he's in the battle, he's an effective player. That's pretty evident.
When you came to San Jose, you had to change the culture of that team to start getting it on a winning path. They're again in a situation where they have to get back to changing the culture and be on a winning path. The difficulties of that as a coach.
When you talk about that way back then, the difference would be age groups, salaries, waivers, no waivers. You know what? Power. It was just like guys asking yesterday. They were talking about because somebody's minutes are down. Well, they missed 3 or 4 shifts, and everybody's going, "Well, freaking coach's got a problem." You got no problem with anybody. You're just freaking trying to win hockey games.
Darryl, back in 2007, did the scouts tell you if you took Mikael Backlund, he'd probably play 900-some games?
It's pretty awesome. I was talking about it last night walking out, and it's funny because his mom's in town, and I hadn't seen his mom since the draft.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I had a good visit with her too, so it's pretty awesome. It goes fast. Like you think about it, somebody like Michael, and he's having a hell of a year. He's having his numbers wise and quite honest performance wise. It might be his best year, so it speaks volumes about him.
Is it because it's becoming more and more rare that a guy plays that many just in one place? Does that make it more special?
Yeah. I mean, even when you look at we just came from off Vegas, and you look at somebody like Jonathan Quick, and it was sort of the big thing because he'd played so long in one place, but it's rare. I mean, you think about it, there's free agency now. The guys can hit the road at 26, or if they're not, or they go through their bridge deal and they hit a home run and away they go. That's the way it works now. It's quite a bit different. I mean, you think about it. Jonathan Quick was 16 or 17 years, whatever it was, in one place. Won a couple cups, won Conn Smythe, All-Star, signed a 10-year contract, all that stuff. Then he gets traded, and everybody's going, "Oh, geez." But the general manager, Rob Blake, was a Hall of Famer, and he got traded too, and to go win a couple times, and then he come back to LA. So, that's the way it all works. That's the way the game is now, and more teams. Very simple. You get 32 teams, right? It used to be, you go from 6 to 32, and then as you go up, well, there's not that much movement, right? The movement is more between that level and this level, not between teams. So you see a lot more of it now.
Darryl, when I was talking to Michael, and he said early in his career, prior to coming over here, he was all offense, and then you and Brent kind of told him, "We need you to work on the other side of your game." What did you see in his skill set that made you think that he could be a really good two-way guy.
I think probably two things would have come into that with Michael, because I seen him play the World Juniors and on his team overseas in Sweden, right? So you see him at that level, and that's the reason he's a first-round pick. If you look in that draft, the centerman that went, I could think of 4 of them that went in that draft, right? And they were all sort of in that same. One of them being Brandon, my nephew Brandon, was in that one, and they were all similar type guys, right? But you could see with Bax that because he was an elite player in his age group over there, so he was always on the power play, he was all that stuff, right? But then when you're like that, then maybe you don't pay quite as much attention to the detail part of it and what it's going to take to play over here, right? So it was pretty easy to see his IQ. You know, you just watch him for a couple of games, it's pretty easy to see that the kid knew the game. You just got to play the whole game, right? So that's the only adjustment. That wasn't, I don't think, a whole lot of learning. I was just saying, hell yeah, that makes me a better player. And if you look at it, we brought him out of, I think it was the World Junior in Ottawa, and we brought him here, and the deal was play him in one game, and then sent him to Kelowna because we had a chance to go to the Mem Cup, right? So then he went to Kelowna, and that probably helped him as much as anything. Like he went there and then played in the NHL after that. So it wasn't like he did his training in the American League or any of that. He was a step above that, and which means that just shows you the difference between that player. You know, when you talk about kids getting to play and developing and all that, it just tells you that he was quite a bit ahead of the curve.
Has Backlund played well enough, in your estimation, to be considered for a Selke trophy at the end of the year?
Oh, if we're a better team, right? If you go, you know, one of the reasons that we're not in a playoff spot is the goals for and against differential, and that's another one that pretty much holds water every year too, if you look at it. So, you know, it's you know, I think it's helped. That's one way with Naz coming in here that's really helped, right? It's actually given. It hasn't put as much on Lindy. It's taken a couple minutes away there, 5-5. It's allowed Bax plays against pretty much most nights the top player, right? So give him full marks for that and being such a high plus player. So and then the face-off part of it too, which is part of that. What you're talking about Selke too, which is, you know, that's a big part of his game.
Darryl, you've talked about the IQ, and everybody in here knows what kind of person he is. Is he playing with as much bite and investment in his game as maybe you've ever seen right now?
Yeah, you know, I didn't see him for those 3 or 4 years other than 3 or 4 times a year. Right. So, you know, you just kind of appreciate his skill set. But I think what I seen in the playoffs last year was he was our best forward other than Johnny Goodrow, to be quite honest. And the reason was because he was a really good competitor, and I think he brought that into, you know, we talked about it at the end of the year, and he brought it into this year. It you know, gave him a whole nother look, and it showed that he could do it consistently, and he's done a really good job of it.
Darryl, you're in your second year of sort of rebuilding the culture over here, and is that trickier when you've got such a different guys from different organizations? That kind of, you almost feel like you have to start sort of at the base level again? Or?
Yeah, I think we pretty much had to again. You know, when you do that much transformation at the top end of your lineup, it's a whole reset, and it hasn't been easy.
What have been the challenges of doing that this season?
Pardon?
What have been those challenges that you referenced?
I just think the personalities are different, right? So you know, it's not so much coach player, it's more the player, right? That's way more important than anything. It's the connection in the room more than anything else, I would say.
Is that kind of where you want it to be right now, or?
Well, obviously we're not in a playoff spot, so obviously it's not where I want it to be.